On behalf of Esco Group, I would like to welcome you to today's webinar. Your presenters today are Randy P.T., myself, Vice President of Program Development, and Lem Palmer, one of our accreditation specialists for HVAC Excellence. At this time, Lem will be presenting a method of teaching the materials and also the changes to Type 1. Before we get started, we want to inform you of our webinar format. We want to be respectful of everyone's time, so we'll end the presentation within an hour. That includes the questions at the end. All attendees will be muted throughout the presentation, but you can submit questions through the question tool on your control panel or by sending a message through the chat feature. If time allows, we will answer as many questions as possible at the end of the presentation. If we're unable to get to your question, we will follow up with you by email. Also, the webinar will be recorded and the recording will be made available at the Proctor login area on the Esco Group website. This particular webinar is the third in a series of webinars intended to help the Esco proctors prepare students and technicians for the EPA Section 608 exam. Type 2 will be covered by myself and Eugene Silverstein on July 24th, and Type 3 will be covered by Earl Delatt and myself on July 31st. Remember, the times for these webinars are in the Central Time Zone, and you must sign up for each individual webinar. At this time, I would like to turn the webinar over to my colleague, Len. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Lem Palmer. I am an accreditation specialist for HVAC Excellence. It's great to have you in attendance today, and thank you for being here. This webinar is called Successfully Preparing Students/Technicians for the EPA Section 608 exam. It will contain updated information on Type 1 certification information and explain some simple teaching techniques. Now for some housekeeping items concerning today's webinar. You will need the following: a pencil, a highlighter, paper, and a 608 EPA book. A hint to help instruction is to remember it's your responsibility to make sure the learner follows the steps and you take control of the group. It is important to the student technician to understand that a pass score can be achieved by completing all the assignments in a timely manner. Teaching is like directing a play. The teacher is the writer and the director. The spotlight is you. It is important how you present. Planning is very important and takes a lot of effort on your part. As the director or teacher, you must inspire and lead the learner down a simple path to success. I like to use the KISS method. Keep it simple, stupid. A simple fill-in-the-blank assignment will work. We will refer to it as a test or a worksheet. Let's set the scene for our presentation or our play. I must first expose the student or the technician to the EPA information. The dreaded student homework assignment, workshop assignment. A great weight of importance must be placed on this paperwork to encourage the student and the text to complete. Reading and writing the information is key to retaining the information needed to pass the test. Learner's prep time is important, and the practice test worksheet should be keyed to the 608 EPA manual and the PowerPoint presentation. The questions are simple fill in the blank, copied from the actual test or the PowerPoint. Pick key words to leave blank for the learners to complete. All the learners must do is read the information, and there is the answer. If possible, use the first sentence. Success is important right at the start. Finding the first answer quickly helps the learner's mindset to be, I can do this and I can pass the exam. The simplest way to get the student or the technician to complete this written assignment is to show them how and where to get the answers. You are not testing yet to see if they know it. The goal is to get them to look at the information. I even give the students a big hint and tell them the questions are in order. I even help with the first couple of questions. The test or worksheets are all numbered, and the students do not put their names on them yet. This is important, and an explanation will come later. Let's look at the first sentence in the Type 1 section of the 608 EPA manual. Remember the hint. Persons handling refrigerants during the maintenance, service, or repair of small appliances must be certified as either a Type 1 or as a universal technician under 608 of the Clean Air Act. Remember, motor vehicle air conditioning falls under 609 and is a different certification. We can also look at the first PowerPoint slide. Make this your first fill-in-the-blank statement. Persons handling refrigerants used in small appliances must be certified as either a blank. The student simply reads the first sentence of the assignment, and wow, there's the answer. Here's the second slide on the PowerPoint. The EPA definition of small appliances includes products manufactured, fully charged, and hermetically sealed in the factory, containing 5 pounds or less of refrigerant. Split systems may not be serviced by Type 1 technicians. Notice the words highlighted in red used throughout the PowerPoint presentation. These are key when preparing for the exam or making your worksheet. Shorten the information and leave the key words in red blank for the students to complete. Here's an example of a second question. The EPA definition of a small appliance includes products manufactured, fully charged, and blank in a factory containing blank. Take the next slide and make the third question. You are now making a study sheet for your students, key to the EPA manual and the PowerPoint presentation. Time will not commit to cover all the slides, but we can look at some of the updated information in the exam. It is important that you include these changes in your practice test or worksheet for your students. The following slides are in random order and are new information as it relates to the new exam for Type 1 certification. All the experienced proctors who have been doing this for years, please take note of all the new information, making sure it gets into your existing program. For the new guys just getting started, make sure it is covered. It will be on your exam. The EPA has approved hydrocarbon refrigerants. This slide explains these changes. hydrocarbon HCr600A is an approved refrigerant for new household refrigerators, freezers, and combination refrigeration freezers. Hydrocarbon refrigerants are not approved for retrofit into existing household refrigerators designed for refrigerants other than hydrocarbons. Remember, the exam questions only cover the refrigerants listed in the 608 manual. You will not see a question that has a refrigerant that is not noted in the manual. The EPA has added new SNAP regulations and have approved R290, R450A, and R600A refrigerants for newly manufactured household refrigerants. Notice carbon dioxide is now listed in the regulations. R744, or carbon dioxide, is a very high pressure refrigerant and generally does not need to be recovered. An example of a good test question for this slide would be R744 carbon dioxide is. Now pick the correct answer. The updated 608 manual explains that a pressure temperature measurement should be taken if a technician suspects that the refrigerant in a recovery cylinder to be contaminated. This pressure measurement should be taken and compared to a pressure temperature chart. If the pressure temperature relationship does not match, the refrigerant should be turned into a reclamation facility. Looking closely at this slide, you can see the possibility for two questions on the exam. This slide explains how to read a pressure temperature chart and is important on the exam. Make sure your learners know how to read and use the charts. They will see it on the test or the exam. The approximate pressure of 134A cylinder that does not contain any non-condensable impurities and is stored at room at 80 degrees Fahrenheit is equal to a pressure of 87 psig. As long as there's liquid refrigerant present and no impurities in the cylinder, the pressure and the temperatures should match what is shown on the pressure temperature chart. This slide discusses the importance of safety when working with HC refrigerants. It is important that your learner understand the markings in their location. Household appliances charged with HC refrigerants require permanent safety markers on or near any evaporators, exposed refrigerant tubing, and machine compartments. The exterior of the refrigerator should also be marked. Students or technicians working with these refrigerants need to understand all of their properties and have the correct equipment to handle them. The preceding slides have been new information now included on the exam. Instructors should make note of these changes and include them in all their older information or new information developed for the student. They are in the new test bank of questions. New proctors should include them in the test or the worksheet that they are now developing. Remember, each slide has the potential to be an exam question. Using this information to develop your student test or worksheet. I will also take time to explain to you that you should not share your developed test or worksheet with the world. After all, it will take time to develop, and it is yours. By developing your own test or worksheets, you help yourself to learn and understand the information. Copying another person's material does not help you understand, just like you don't want your students to copy. Well, how? It is easy, but it will take a little time to complete. Remember, when it is finished, it can be used repeatedly with different learners. Remember, the PowerPoint presentations have keywords in red located on the slides. A very good place to get your questions. These keywords help the learner and the presenter focus on the main point and simplify the learning process. The developers of the PowerPoint presentation want the information conveyed in a way that all will understand and pass the exam. Do you remember what I said about the words in red? Using this source will tie all the information together. You are directing this play or presentation. This is all about setting the learner up for success. Students need some exposure to the information before you present the information. Let them use the manual and complete the simple fill-in-the-blank test or worksheet you have developed. It will help the learner do the work and feel good about it and expose them to the information. It will at least get them to open the 608 information. The idea is to expose the student to the information as many times as possible. Here's a hint. Most learners get it after 7 times. Although they don't realize it, if they've done their assignment, they read it, if they completed the test, they wrote the answers on the worksheet. Wow! 2 cases of exposure to Type 1 certification information. For instance, one illustration of rote learning can be observed in preparing for exams, a technique which may sometimes be referred to as cramming. The idea of cramming is just reviewing the information over and over. Hey, what is the goal here? To prepare the learner to pass an exam. This prepared fill-in-the-blank test or worksheet is not the actual exam, but helps retain information needed to pass the exam. I am not telling you to teach the exam, but to use self-developed information that helps learners' retention of the information. The learner, hopefully under your directions, will complete their test or their worksheet, causing them to at least review it twice, unless they cheated and they copied it from somebody, and then they only got it once. Just shoving the manual at a learner and saying, get ready to take the exam, will mean an epic fail. You as a presenter even have examples of this failure with some of your students. Simply showing the PowerPoint in the class or the workshop, no prep on your part or the student's part, only sets the learner up for failure. Now, back to the program. The learners have their test or their worksheets complete. Take up the assignment. Shuffle the papers like a deck of cards and return the papers to each student or learner. Now, You know why numbers and no names. Let's protect the privacy of the student. Have each grade the paper they were given. Hint, there's been a lot of prep time up to here. You have taken time to prepare the test and the worksheet. You have required the students to complete the worksheet. It is time for you, the teacher, to enter the stage. Don't blow it. It's your time to read each question, given the correct answer. It is important. Always repeat, repeat, and repeat. The learner's part is to read along with you, checking and grading the paper, giving them exposure, exposure, exposure. That is the goal. Cover the basic information, read, and repeat. It's time to encourage them and get feedback from your learners. You've now exposed it to the information to them 4 times. They have been exposed to the material 4 times. Once when read at home or wherever. Twice when the learner wrote the answers on the test or the worksheet. Third, they heard you read and review in class. And fourth, when they reviewed it themselves to check and the retest. After the test, return the papers to the proper learner or student. Hint, look for answers that are marked incorrect. If possible, have the learner come to you at your desk. Call the paper by number. Remember, keep learners busy. Just moving from their seat helps reset the learning process. This helps keep attention to the task in check. With test returned, now quickly read the answers for all to check their own paper. The student has now reviewed the information 5 times, and you haven't even got to your PowerPoint presentation. Encouragement is important. The learners will still need encouragement. Prepare your learner for the PowerPoint presentation. The PowerPoint follows the EPA manual. The students must have an EPA manual, highlighters, pencils, notebooks, electronic tablets or cell phones. Encourage the learner. Give them something simple to complete during your presentation. The student needs to take notes. It is an important part of the process. You should never allow a student to just sit there and do nothing. They must be involved. Remember, you are the director of this play or the presentation. The learners, the audience. Keep them focused by keeping them busy. A quick restroom break or a simple story here will work. Intermission. All plays have them. Do not keep them in their seats too long. You will lose them. A simple upbeat story will reset the learner's time clock. Hint, keep the acts of your play or your presentation within this time frame. It will help you keep the learner focused and serve you well. Try and relate the story to an experience you've had that can be applied to the subject. The attention span for a learner is 15 to 20 minutes. Time spent over this may be wasted. Remember, start and restart your learners. Now, if you'll take your EPA manual and find the start of section type 1 in your manual. Now, count the pages to type 2. Remember, you're keeping your students busy. There are just a few pages. a handle on this information. In the Type 1 test, there are 25 multiple choice questions. These questions are all taken from a developed test bank. And I'll repeat that again. A developed test bank for Type 1 of the 608 Clean Air Act. There is a lot of information in this sort section, and all of it is very important. Those students who highlight for learning will find the pages completely yellow or whatever color highlighter they are using. The key here is that words are highlighted in red on the PowerPoint should be highlighted only in the EPA manual. In no way am I saying to memorize the entire section. Here's a simple approach to helping the students retain PowerPoint information. A simple numbered piece of paper. You get it ready with the number vertically down the edge. Give each student a paper. Each student will need something to write with. Explain that all the notes are in red, must be written down in order down the page. Remember, keep your learner busy. Simply have the student write the notes down the paper as they appear in the presentation. Example, number 1, Type 1 technicians or universal technicians is the note on this slide. Slide 1 has a red note. Write it down on line 1. Note-taking helps the learner focus. The next red note goes in line 2. Most slides have red notes. Some may not. Just keep the order as they appear. Remember, the test of the worksheet was taken from these slides. Wow, the learner is writing the information down again. Presenting the PowerPoint. Wow, watch your speed and adjust to your audience. Note-taking is an important part of the presentation, so pay attention. Let them get the notes. Are you ready? Make sure your learners' pencils are sharp and have the notes pages ready to take their notes. The presentation should not be a race. Practice your presentation. Know your times and always adjust to your audience. It is important to watch your learners. Don't let them fall behind. Case in point, have I gone quickly? Did I lose some of you? I am sure of it. How do you feel? Lost? The show must go on. You've set the stage. Prepare the learner for the 608 exam. The manual was never intended to be a self-study presentation. For technicians already out in the field, this concept may work, but even they may need some help. Understanding the basic concept of refrigerant handling and covering these concepts are important to anyone taking the exam. Now, present your PowerPoint. Remember the hints. Always be prepared. Know the information front to back and back to front. Remember, if one is behind, more will be. Review with the learner. Did you get your notes? Help complete if some missed a note. Review the information carefully. Pay close attention to the words in red. Make sure all have kept up. Now it's time to let them retake the practice test. First, ask the learner to complete all the answers they can without their notes. Then allow them to use their notes. It is a practice test. It is important for the learner to take notes and to show that they can be used. The teacher has the option to mix up the test questions or leave them in the same order. It is important to point out here, they cannot use their notes on the exam. Remember, this exercise is to help put the information to memory. They're not taking the real test yet. They're only putting the information to memory. They can help each other. Break them up in groups. It's okay. Help them complete the practice test. Groups working together helps retentions and keeps the focus on the task at hand, learning the information. Keep the learner focused and on the task. Make sure all do the work and put the information to memory. Until they can make 100% on the practice test, they're not ready. Take up the test. Redistribute the test and grade them. Instant feedback is important to the process. The goal, a perfect paper, makes the learners feel good about themselves and ready to take the exam. Give the learner some advice for taking the exam. Tell the learner to get a good night's sleep if they're testing the next day. Tell the learner to quickly review the information when they get up that morning. Tell the learner to be on time and don't show up late and be in a hurry. Tell the learner to have the needed supplies to take the exam. Now, let's review our play or our presentation today. The goal, expose the learner to information as many times as possible. Reading, writing, and hearing it is important. We have attempted to have the learner review the Type 1 information 7 times. Most learners will get it in memory when repeated 7 times. We have had them read the Type 1 information. Number 2, they wrote the answers to the worksheet. Number 3, the teachers reviewed the test. Number 4, the learners graded the test. Number 5, the teacher presented the PowerPoint. Number 6, the learners retested using their notes. And number 7, the teacher reviewed the test. Once you've written your play or your presentation, it gets easier to present and only gets better. Remember, this will work for all sections of the EPA exam. The students, the techs, will get on board and will pass the exam. Once you've written your presentation, it gets only easier and better as you present. I hope it's been informative and helpful information. The play or presentation only gets better with practice, and prep time gets easier. I hope you've understood our webinar today. I hope you apply some of the information that's been given to you, and we will now start our answer of questions. Thank you for your attention today.
We had one question on how can we get the worksheet. Actually, these worksheets are something you would make up yourself with your students as an instructor.
My suggestion on these particular worksheets are that you develop them from the PowerPoint presentation. If you will go into your PowerPoint presentation and look at the first slide, you will see words in red. Simply take that slide and make a shortened sentence using the two key words. Go to the next slide, do the same thing. If you go all the way through the PowerPoint presentation, you will develop a worksheet that covers all of the main points. It takes a little bit of time, but once it's completed, always remember it's yours, and you don't have to do it again. Thank you. That was a very good question.
Again, if anyone has any questions or come up with questions later on, feel free to call our customer service department. Len, would you advance the slide? Got the phone number and address on the last slide. And also you could email me or call myself or Lem. And again, remember type 2 and type 3 is going to be covered next week and the week after. So hope to see y'all there. Thank you for attending.